Welcome back. I've broken today's quote into 2 episodes, or a 2-part series. This is the first part, and if you would like to see the second, there is a link in the description. In today's episode of Great Ideas from Around the World, I'm going to address a problem I think we've all faced. Imagine you're having an online conversation with a friend who disagrees with you. You're discussing an easy topic, and you're sure that you're on the right side of it. You've done your homework, and there are crowds of people who agree with you. The experts agree with you, even comedians easily poke fun at the other side. Your friend makes all the common claims for their side, and you point out that they're wrong. The conversation grows heated, and before you know it, you're calling each other names, and you block each other. Your friendship is ruined. This happens far too often. Do we like losing friends? Do we like standing up for what we believe, only to have others call us things that we're not? Of course not. I mean, sure, afterwards we can pat ourselves on the back for being right, but the other person is doing the exact same thing. So let's explore a way that we can avoid this kind of mess. A mess aggravated when we make caricatures out of those who we disagree with. And you're probably thinking, as what I was thinking when I was researching this, well, I don't do this. Other people do this, but I don't do it. But for the sake of understanding what the advice is today, let's consider that we do, perhaps a lot more than we think we do. It's my experience that just about everyone does this. I've been to caucus meetings for both major political parties in the U.S. I've attended multiple forums, protests on college campuses, and of course, I've seen it everywhere online. We tend to make caricatures out of those who we disagree with. And of course, a caricature is some subhuman, cartoony, two-dimensional version of the person we're talking to, which will cause problems, of course, right off the bat. But it's really easy to do, and I don't think we do it on purpose. I see it in just about every major issue. I see it when atheists make fun of theists or theists point fun at atheists. I see it in political debates. I see it among family members, spouses, in-laws. And of course, I've made all of these mistakes myself, but I've also tried out these techniques, and they work. Most of the time. It's not easy, but I think it's worth it. The quote today comes from Dennett. He's an American scientist and a philosopher. His 2013 book is called Intuition Pumps and Other Tools for Thinking. And in it, he gives a summary of Russian-American mathematical psychologist Anatol Rapoport. These are his rules for the best antidote for the tendency we have to caricature our opponents. There's 4 of them. Number 1, you should attempt to re-express your target's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your target says, "Thanks. I wish I thought of putting it that way." Interesting idea, huh? Number 2, you should list any points of agreement, especially if they are not matters of general or widespread agreement. Number 3, you should mention anything you have learned from your target. And number 4, only then are you permitted to say as much as a word of rebuttal or criticism. So let's break those down one at a time. Number 1 says you should attempt to re-express your target's position so clearly, vividly, and fairly that your target says, "Thanks, I wish I thought of putting it that way." Most people are terrible at communication. So this is a great tool, I think, in many situations that will increase that skill. We can all be better at communicating things and responding properly to the communication of others. Repeating back what you've heard is a great way to show that you're listening and show respect. It counts for a lot. I've noticed this especially in professional environments and in work environments. When you can repeat back in your own words the instructions you've been given or the tasks that your team or group has been assigned, it goes a long way to show that you really are paying attention. And of course, if the other person thinks that you don't get it, then they make themselves the teacher and then you become the student. And it's a one-way, one-sided communication. You're no longer equals. You don't want that. After you've restated the other person's position, and of course, you don't have to agree with any of it, then this is an easy out of the conversation right here. This is an exit point that you can use if you're losing interest in the topic. But if you're convinced that this person really is open to hearing the other side, well, then you can continue on to step number 2. You should list any points of agreement, especially if they are not matters of general or widespread agreement. It's helpful, I think, at this point also to share the same language as the person you're talking to. Make sure that you're using the same definitions. It's really embarrassing to me when I'm halfway through a conversation that has gone on for 2 hours and I realize that we are talking past each other just because we're using different definitions. And when you do agree on those things, point them out. This is a good way to cover ground. It's human nature to zero in with laser focus on our differences, but that just leads to losing friends and making enemies. Try to avoid that. Especially, of course, if you have something in common with this person that the general population isn't so sure about. I'd love to discuss the last 2 points, but we are out of time today. There is a second part to this episode. Please look at the description of this video to find a direct link to that second part, and then the conversation will continue. Thank you for joining me today, and I'll see you tomorrow.